Well, hello again. We're back, Ellie. Here we are on our little podcast. And I just have to tell you, I'm a newbie in the podcasting world. You know me, I'm just kind of tagging along with you. But I just have to give a plug to Resonate real quick about how difficult this whole process really is to get right and how committed you guys are to like getting it right. That's a lot of behind the scenes stuff we're not going to get into. But I just want to say, well done, Brad and Ellie. Amazing work.
Thank you, Maggie. Yeah, people might underestimate what it takes to podcast and all the little technical things that can go wrong or goes into a podcast. And I really would say our quality and trying to do it right really is mostly Brad. So thank you for the behind the scenes work that you do on Renegade and everyone else's shows. So
Incredible.
Big shout out.
I could never run a podcast. I would have to call you before I did my own podcast.
Yeah, well, we got you, Maggie. We got you. We're really excited about today's guest. We're going to have a conversation that is one that is super relevant to, at least 50% of business owners at some point. And it is one of that I think a lot of people don't know what happens or how to talk about. And I think that there is often not only a lot of fear around business ownership with a spouse, but also coming and being able to talk about what you know and don't know and being okay with that. And I just want to commend our guest today, Mary, she's been a friend now for a little over like a year and a half, actually almost 2 years, and has been one of the coolest, most courageous, grace-giving people that I know, and she would not say that about herself, and yet that's how I feel about her. So Mary Shields, thank you for coming on today's show.
Thank you, Ellie and Maggie. So nice to meet you. Ellie, you met me at my lowest point in life and rode the waves with me as a friend and a colleague in the business ownership world. And I will always remember and treasure the people that were with me in the dumps, like in the really say like, oh, the messy parts of life but no, really for me, it was awful. And you brought me in and said, hey, we're here for you. We're going to support you. And I don't even know you, but I'm going to get to know you and you're not alone. So thank you.
Oh, well, thanks, Mary. And now I have everybody waiting on bated breath to hear your story. So first to say, the way that Mary and I met was through Vistage. So if we could give a shout out, I know you've heard us talk about it before. It might feel culty to the people who are not a part of Vistage, but the reason why so many business owners will give it credit is because it gives you a community of people that you would not otherwise have who are going through and have a safe space to talk about some really ugly things and hard stuff and good things. And so I just have a big thank you to Vistage for bringing Mary into my life. Mary, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what your business is, and what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, well, that's easy to talk about. My name is Mary K. Shields. I am a transplant from Daytona Beach, Florida. So Florida is my home. I grew up there. My grandfather was a race car driver, and was the childhood, like, fast, growing up there was just so different than what my life is now. But I'm in Louisville, Kentucky now. I love it. I love the seasons. I love the people. Very early on, I knew I wanted to be a dentist. My friends thought that was weird. My parents didn't, and they encouraged me. My mom was a nurse. My dad was an environmentalist. So I came from no dentists in the family, but loved my own pediatric dentist. He was so patient and kind with me and let me come early to appointments and stay late after appointments to learn more. And so I just had this affinity for kind of blending like the science interest with the art aspect. And was fortunate enough to get into dental school. I tell people that are interested, the hardest part is getting into dental school. You get accepted, you're good, and just, obviously get through and get your degree. Every year, I feel like it gets more challenging for young people to get into professional schools, especially in the healthcare realm, but was able to do that. Graduated in 2011, knew I wanted to be a business owner, started my practice in 2012, was a solo practitioner for several years because, as you all probably know, starting your business, things are a little bit slower in the beginning and you have more time to dedicate towards, to running the business and knowing everything in and out. And then was able to start a family. So got married, started a family. He also was a dentist, and his employment opportunity kind of went away with one of his family businesses. And we thought, well, if we're both dentists and we want to own our own practice, then why on earth would we not want to do that together? So he joined my practice about 2 to 3 years into what I had already established. And it was going well until it wasn't.
Going well until it wasn't.
Yes.
That's always the truth, right? It's going well until it isn't.
Yeah.
And I think we should throw in here just some more fun facts. Like, you all own your building. You built out a building in this growth period and phase. So tell us a little bit more about the scope of what you all built together.
Yeah. And that was one of the really cool things is I think when you go into business, someone, aside from the fact that we were married, we had different skill sets and different talents and different interests. So that's what made it really great, because I loved seeing children. My business partner at the time did not like seeing children. So it was kind of a yin and a yang that worked really well. I like to do some facial cosmetics, some injectables, whether it's botulinum toxins or dermal filler. So that was kind of my realm of aesthetics, whereas he was more surgical minded and liked all the bloody stuff and all the, putting implants in and lifting the sinus floor up. And that stuff is not it's not my interest in dentistry. And one of the cool things about general dentists is you kind of do get to decide what type of practice do you want to have. Whereas if you specialize, so if I was a pediatric dentist, my day-to-day practice of dentistry would be limited to only seeing pediatric patients. So as a general dentist, we kind of got to the flexibility and the positive aspect of choosing what you like to do and kind of hone in on those skills and offer that to your patient. So it was nice that Triple Crown Dentistry became a place where if you needed an implant, you could be serviced. If you just needed a cleaning, if you needed a crown or brand new veneers, we could kind of keep you all in one building. And it worked well. And we were able to maximize a 6,000 square foot building, and we outgrew it. So then we wanted to stay in the same complex and thought, well, we need a bigger building. And it was phase 3 development of the complex. And they said, well, we've got an 8,000 square foot building that you can purchase. And we thought, perfect. And that was in 2019.
Yeah. And so you really built out a really large practice for a private practice. Like the financially stable, growing, owned a building. And from what I learned from the beginning was you had like lots of flexibility and there was a good things about it, but there were some things that weren't so great about it even before the impetus point that brought you to Vistage. So talk a little bit about how your practice had shifted because you were leading it with a partner that had a different vision.
Well, and you're exactly right, Ellie. So much comes from what type of a leader are you within your own business. And I should say that we tried really hard to save our marriage. And we went through a lot of intense counseling for years. Sometimes, 3 to 4 hours a week were spent with a marriage and family therapist who had a specialty in family businesses. So we were getting the right help from the right people to try. And I'll never forget, we had one session and he said, think of, and the comparison might not be well received by my team, because what he said was, it's like being a parent, and there's a fun parent and a strict parent. And if those two parents aren't aligned and consistent and in agreement and giving, being consistent with how they show up and the messaging that they're sending your team, it's kind of like your kids. And when your kids are smart, we know that. I've got a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old, and I'm realizing every day how smart they are, and pain points, things like technology that I am just having a hard time with. But they outsmart me in every direction, which is great for them, not so great for me as a parent. But the therapist would say, as soon as your team, or your children for that matter, see a breakdown in the foundation of the leaders of whether it's the household or the business, they recognize it and they kind of optimize it to serve them best. Whether it's, triangulating, subverting some of the rules in place. And it happened. It happened at home and it happened at work. And there was almost like a big divide between kind of team mommy and team daddy. And I'll never forget, there were like 2 weeks between one of our counseling sessions, and the next one. And when he made the analogy of mom and dad, we did a group staff meeting, but it was also like a competition, and they actually named it Team Mommy and Daddy. And I was like, well, if that's not just like the perfect proof.
Oh my gosh.
So once
incredible.
Right, Maggie? It was like, okay, like it is happening just as he said it would, and I'm seeing it in real time. And once I recognized it for what it was a little bit too late, because some of those, let's say alliances, but some of those like alignment choices with one of us or the other of us, it was too late. There was already resentment being built growing between the two of us as husband and wife and as owners. And unfortunately, we say it's a slippery slope. We couldn't recover from that. We were never going to. And some of it was pride and ego. And I have no problem looking back and thinking, I know I could have done things differently. I know I could have showed up differently. I could have been softer. I could have been more, relaxed in some areas, so that the areas I was really had strong feelings about could kind of get the attention that I thought they needed to get an outcome that was better for everybody, if that makes sense.
But I mean, I think that your experience is super common. And so it's not whether or not, even for our listeners right now, it's not who was right or wrong, or what could have even been done differently. Most business owners, or go through a business partnership divorce at some point, or a marital divorce. You just happen to get to go through both at the same time. And there are a lot of people who go through that. And so I think what I want to make sure our listeners hear is like the pit, and the fact that like even within just 2 years, what you've been able to come out of that with. And so, Maggie, if you have any other questions about this, please interrupt me. But I want to talk more about, you all came to the decision that there was no more going forward. And what did that look like? And what did that mean when it was like your family and your business all at once?
Yeah. And that was probably the hard part. I feel like once the decision was made, it almost became a little bit easier because it wasn't in limbo. For me, probably more than for my ex-partner, but the stress and the tension of the trying, the proverbial square peg in a round hole, it just wasn't working. And when I finally sat in my mind, I was like, it's never going to work. I'm always going to be me. He's always going to be him. And there was a natural exodus of some of the people. And that was hard. It was hard to see longtime employees, team members say, I really like it here and I really like both of you. but this is too much. I can't stay in this environment. It makes me uncomfortable. There's no security. And they knew, they knew based on what they were hearing and based on what was very obvious is we weren't going to continue practicing together being divorced. Someone was going to be able to maintain the business and someone was going to not be at the practice anymore. And so the people that had aligned with him and preferred his leadership style, that's probably the best way I could have said it, preferred his leadership style, they went on to other opportunities. And that's the great thing. Honestly, dentistry is one of those, well, some people will say it's a business. Some people will say it's healthcare. So we won't go into that. That would be another day. But there are lots of needs in this space of dentistry for offices here, particularly in this area, but it's nationwide. We need more dental providers, whether it's assistants, front office administrators, hygienists, dentists. There's a need. So I was sad to see many of them leave. But it was almost like it had to happen for a new imagination of a new practice that was kind of how it started. It was like a full circle of how I originated the business, my core values, my mission and vision, like all of that. It went away for a while. And then as of March 1st, 2025, it started to make that circle again. And that's when Vistage really, to your point, Ellie, at the beginning, really helped me. And I remember pushing back and thinking, not pushing back, like in an argument stance, but it's not the right time for me to actually work on my business. Right now, I'm just trying, right at that point, I was just trying to not survive, that sounds dramatic, but just get through to the next day and do the best I could and treat my patients, exceptionally well. And our Vistage chair at the time said, actually, this is the best time for you to have a network of other business owners that may not have gone through the same thing, but can be supportive to you and help you work through this. I thought, when we talk about business, it should only be about business. You can't divide your life into these little segments of what's important in that moment. It's all commingled.
Yeah, what you describe in this multi-year experience of sort of this conflict that you guys were in is relevant especially for people who are married and in a business together or in a friendship together or in even just a simple business partnership together, that if you are not aligned, the energy that gets lost in the battle to win in the alignment, that is a huge amount of energy that can then be released once you resolve the conflict and you agree, okay, we're going to separate. All that energy can pour into building the thing you want. And I really want our listeners to hear that a lot of us are in many ways in a battle of alignment at work, whether that's in a job with a boss that you don't align with, or in a partnership with someone or a friend, whatever it might be, that if your energy is leaking out and being lost in that battle, then it's costing your business something. It's costing you something. And well on you for working so hard and really making sure that you were like, okay, yes, this is done. You went all the way to the wall to figure out whether this relationship would survive. But I can imagine that once you kind of let the dust clear and you were like, okay, I'm ready to get back in the saddle and get into Vistage and get my business going again. I don't know, but I can only imagine it was a major blossoming of getting the people out who were not in alignment with you and having one vision and one person leading. Tell us how that felt.
It was great because I could really, to your point, is like once the conflict environment wasn't gone, but it was resolved enough to where I could do the work that I desperately wanted to do. I signed up for so many executive roundtables and coaches. And I thought, well, I'm ready to do that. And I'm ready to take to do the EQ 360 and see like, where are the opportunities for me to be a better leader? How can I show it better? What's my low scores were stress tolerance. And I thought, well, yeah, that's right. Stress tolerance and like how to show up as a leader consistently and building trust with your team. And I loved doing that work. And that just completely was put on pause. The individual, that's it. That's really it. Is the individual work stopped. And the desperate effort of trying to save the marriage and save what we had designed together. Because when I mentioned, like, when it was great, and it certainly was. But unfortunately, we could not get through the pain points. And I remember just desperately thinking, can we compromise on this? And I remember one of the financial things that happened is he really wanted to buy, it's a robot that can be used in dentistry, which sounds really cool. Kind of like they use robotics for like hips and shoulders and knees and stuff and orthopedic care. There is a dental implant robot, and he's very techy. And that was a really cool thing about the practice, because it did elevate some of the offerings of same-day crowns and things like that. But he really wanted this robot that would place implants. And it was almost $300,000. And I just said, we can't do it. And so I was thinking, here's a time where no matter how much I say I want to compromise and he says he wants to compromise, you can't compromise on buying a $300,000 robot. Just like if it were a home thing, you can't compromise on whether he gets a Lamborghini or, okay, that's not fair. Whether I say I want to,
there's just not a $150,000 robot. There's a $300,000 robot or no robot. Yeah.
Exactly. And we both dug in. And we were both dug in. And that was when I was like, I think things like this are going to continue to happen. And it was a lot. It was too much.
It shows like there's the personal things, like there's the marital things, there's the family things, there was the whatever, but there was also the business things, and they were playing off of each other, and they came to this crescendo moment, and then you all decided we're going to walk away. And then you started rebuilding yourself and rebuilding the practice as you want it now. But in that moment, you discovered something, a massive business mistake, and you were at a low point in confidence when you discovered it. Talk to us about realizing that you had added him to the business ownership kind of unintentionally, without making an agreement around how that might play out if you were to get divorced.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is there was no like worst case scenario planning. And a lot of things we do as business owners, we're good about. We have advisors that say, well, what would you do if you got sick? Well, I have disability coverage for that. Like, I thought we had done a good job preparing for anything, but we did not prepare for what if we got divorced.
There's like a lot of negativity around this idea of like prenups. And the reality is like, you would never go into business with someone without a business contractual relationship, in theory. Or most people would say it's a bad idea to go into business with someone without a business contractual relationship. And even if you don't have a prenup in the marriage portion, a lot of people go into business without thinking about divorce as a business departure. And you don't have that same kind of like legal play-by-play of events of what should happen if you decided to exit relationship and business ownership at the same time. And so you didn't have one. What made you decide you wanted to hold on to the business? Because you weren't clear at first.
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing, is we both wanted to keep the business. And so that last, I don't know, 8 months probably, because the divorce was a nearly 2-year divorce. So that last 8 months, we really spent a lot of time individually looking at what have we contributed to the practice. And really at the end of the day, Ellie, it came down to, I started this practice from nothing, from 0 patients. My mom was my first patient. Her patient number is literally number 1. And I cleaned teeth. I was the hygienist. I was the office manager. I was the dentist, and I was my own assistant. I felt, right, wrong, or indifferent, I felt like because I hung a shingle and started the practice while he was still in dental school, that it was mine. And that, things, to be honest, things with his previous employer went bad. It was a family business. He was the 3rd generation dentist. And all along, he was going to take over that practice. And that went terribly wrong. And he found himself without a job. And it was a temporary it was a temporary fix so that we had, paid our mortgage, and we had a 6-week-old at the time. And it was like, well, I guess we'll work together until you find something else. And then he never left. But I never insisted that he leave because I never thought this would happen. But I remember a meeting with our accountant, and she said, there's some tax implications, and you might be better served if we take you from filing as an LLC, and I may be getting this wrong, but I think this is right, to converting to an S corp. And when you apply to do that, you list the owners of the company. And in my own handwriting, it said owners and percentage of ownership. And in my own handwriting, I wrote Mary Shields, 50%, Eric, 50%. And in that moment, I'm thinking, we're married. Everything is 50-50. I didn't have any legal guidance. My accountant didn't advise me. And it wasn't
as because technically the stock in the state database was not split that way.
And so when I knew we were getting divorced, I knew we both wanted the office. I went to my business attorney that helped me establish the articles of incorporation and all that. And she said, you essentially gave him 50% of your business. In that moment, you gave him 50% of your business.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, I'm an idiot. What was I thinking? And I've let that go. But yeah, that was a tough day for sure.
That's a hard lesson. And that's one of the big takeaways we want our listeners to hear is be thoughtful in these moments and seek guidance, especially when you're in that, in these moments of transferring from one to the other. And, I'm forever talking to my CPA or my attorney and always getting other opinions. It's like you hear something from someone, I like to bounce it off of someone else and say, is this right? My investment person, my CPA, but don't. It's just a really, really powerful lesson, and not just related to divorce, but just think about all the worst possible outcomes and really ask questions to understand what the liabilities and implications are of each decision. But that's a heartbreaker.
Yeah, it was a tough day, but
worth it. Worth it to buy them out, and worth it to be your own boss and to build something. I mean, this is going to just thrive under that clear leadership and vision that you have.
I think so. And I started to see it happen. And then, it's just like if you get a compliment, you're going to wear that shirt more. So I was getting this positive feedback, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's working. For every time I was told they don't respect you, they think you micromanage them, for every negative thing I had heard so many times that I actually started to believe, I was like, wait, I didn't feel like those things were true. And now I'm getting real evidence on the daily from my positive, supportive team members, some of which who rode through the storm, literally stayed with me the whole time by my side. And now I'm seeing it wasn't all true.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I remember you came in to Vistage one of the early times, and you had talked about wanting an employee handbook and getting sideways with your partner about this employee handbook, because you were in your head, the employee handbook was implementing like a new culture and some new standards and getting everybody to like buy into some standards. But it was like the sacred cow that you were like holding on to. And now, you know, that was like this like moment of contention. And fast forward, now you have not just the handbook, but the culture that you were hoping for. And I know that it's not just like you saying that you have it, because I have been in your seat, literally at the dentist office, getting my teeth cleaned or done, and talking to one of your key employees that went through it all with you, and her just said, I said, like, you've been through it all with Mary. And she was like, yes, and it's so much better. And so like, you've done a fantastic job. How do you feel? Because I feel like you were really low in confidence when you came into this scenario. And now what I feel like I see is someone who's like been rebirthed into her new self.
I think you're right. And I feel really proud. And I used to hear your ego and your pride. And it was so like, I was so criticized for being confident and for being proud and for being like convicted in some of the things that I really believed in. And now that it's being well received, it's changed my whole life.
I mean, walking in your office must be a transformative difference from before to now. To walk in and know no conflict, no fight, we're all on the same page. It's possible, people. If you're in a situation where you are feeling that showing up to work, sick to your stomach, conflict, there is another side. You just have to do the hard stuff.
You're absolutely right. And it takes time, and you need your people, like you need the support, and it is all around you, and people want to help other people.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you're going through, that human element of what can I do to help you? It is real. And we want to, it's the instinct, it's the human instinct. And it's that like need for the human connection. And we have a blip of a life, and we may as well help each other and do the best we can.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yay, Mary.
So we're going to wrap up today's show, but I'm just curious, do you have any like closing thoughts or reflections about your journey, Mary, that you would want someone else who's standing in your shoes, considering divorce, who owns a company or who's already mid-divorce, like not like thinking about divorce, but mid-divorce? Do you have any like thoughts or final encouragements for that person?
It's so hard to put a bow on that. I'm a huge advocate for marriage and for really doing everything you possibly can to stay married. And it is a beautiful thing. But the business owner in me, kind of back to what Maggie was saying, is like, know that you need experts, that we say the human drive is to help others. When you have a professional that is an accountant or an attorney or a financial planner, you've got to lean on those people, and you've got to say, like, can you help me through this? Can you help me understand this? And be curious about things that you don't know. And we all have our gifts, and lean on the people that have gifts that are different than yours, and trust them. And then, follow through. That would be my biggest thing. It's like, following through with things that they tell you.
Thank you for sharing your story and being honest. It's something that I feel like so many people go through, and we don't really like to share the ugly parts, but you've been open about your journey, and you've done the work. And so if I could think of anything that I have learned from you, is that you've done the work. You have, even in the lowest point, stayed positive. And even when you were like not positive about yourself, you were always so thankful for anyone who was there to hold space for you or to encourage you. And you sought support, whether that was business support, therapy. You just did the work, and you rebuild something amazing. So thanks for sharing your story, and hopefully it helps someone else.
Thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you, Mary. Really appreciate your candor. It's very valuable for all of us.
Resonate.